Every Navaratri, we have been discussing about the various leaders who have brought different perspectives to their business and how they have been able to protect their business, grow their business, and eventually take it to a very different level. Today, we are fortunate to have somebody who is going to tell you how the value that you are going to create in your business needs to be protected, why it needs to be protected, how it needs to be protected, and eventually at what point in time you can realize that value. It's an amazing pleasure for me to have somebody who has been there, done that, and is helping many, many people help realize that particular value for themselves and for their enterprises. It's an absolute privilege for me to have somebody who is going to tell you how it's going to happen. So I'm not going to look at much more on this particular part, but I'm going to show you some pictures and videos of how it is going to happen and how things really happen with her. Is this fine?
Yeah. It
Now,
seems like a pro.
okay. So not much on this particular part. Only this is a bit of editing that I'm going to do when I'm running on this particular bit. So introduction part would come out to, so I'll edit this bit. So introduction part will come out to this particular part. I'll request you for some images and the images that I will bring in at this point in time. And then I will start on this, on the interview part of it.
Okay.
Sure. So this particular day, as we celebrate the Navaratri and we look at protecting our rights and how we are going to build on value and improve that value in the enterprises or the endeavor that we are going to do. It's an absolute privilege for me to have Isha joining us, and we would hear from her what her story has been, which is a very interesting one, and then we will see how she is making the things happen. Thank you so much for taking your time and joining us for this conversation.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Can we have an understanding of how this journey has been for you?
Sure. So let me start with the beginning then. So I would say that while I was in school at that point of time, my father, obvious two things that you have to do is either be an engineer or be a doctor. So it started off being with preparing for medical. Somehow I could only got dental exams cracked, so I could not get an MBBS seat. So the journey started from that point of time. I enrolled myself into biotechnology because I had both bio and maths. And to be very honest, both the subjects were very close to my heart, and I was very inclined towards both. So at that point of time, a culture of biotechnology was there, and then everybody was talking about this field that this is going to be the next boom, and this is going to be the next field apart from IT and CS at that point of time. So I'm talking about 2006. So I enrolled myself into BTech biotechnology, and that is when I got introduced with IPR as a subject. So my challenge was that I wanted to work with technology, but then I was not very keen in going into a lab work because I'm more of a problem solver. I'm more of a real time scenario kind of a person that you need to give me a problem and then I solve it on real time basis rather than I mean sitting in a lab and then doing it was not something which was very fascinating to me. So most of the people who were with me, all my friends and known people were actually going for IT placements. So at that point of time, I decided maybe what I can do is let me try to do law because law is going to be uh, a combination of a techno-legal field, which was very rare at that point of time. Again, I'm talking about 2010 and 11 at that point of time. So the IPR introduction in the college was such that it got me a hang of it, that how it can be done. There is a field out there which can be explored because most of the people what they used to do was engineering then MBA or probably engineering and then masters or MBBS and then MS. So this was like standard route. So I wanted to break that and I wanted to try something unique, which was more interesting for me. So I opted for IPR jobs, and then in 2000, I guess 12 is when I completed my BTech and Tech, and I started working with different organizations. So at that point of time, I started liking my work a lot because being from a technology person's technology's background, so it was very kind of challenging for myself as well, because every day was an interaction with scientists, innovators, founders, because they are creating something new which is not there in the public domain yet. Like for example, if I talk about an Apple Watch will come into market probably after 1 or 2 years, when it is already developed and the innovation is already done, patent applications are granted. At that point of time, it goes into the public domain, so you get to know the technology like pre-handed, probably 3, 4, 5 years ahead of what is going to happen. So those flying cars, Tesla cars, self-driven cars, all that was, no, I mean, such kind of applications were filed. So it was very, very interesting. And when I started off working at that point of time, my dad wanted me to do law because he came from a legal background. So he was pushing me. I had no plans to have a full-fledged LLB degree, but then I always was inclined, because again it was a techno-legal field. So I thought that it's a good idea, and I'm just sharing a little bit of story. So I opted for IIT Kharagpur. I gave that exam and I got through. So when I went there, and everybody was happy, because once you get into IIT, so you know how the entire ecosystem works around you, all those family members, and everybody was excited. But I don't know. I mean, something there wasn't clicking inside me. I felt that spending 3 years away from home and only for pursuing a degree, and then all the professors were from you, and then there is a culture difference. So I don't know what exactly was the reason. Till now I'm not able to figure out, but then something in me told that this is not the path that I want to follow. So I quit. I came back and I started off working again. And then I thought that let me complete it, my law, while I'm working part time, or while I'm working, at least like, I mean, I can balance it out, but then work experience was important for me rather than the theoretical knowledge, for that matter. So post that, after I guess 4.5 to 5 years, I worked in different law firms, institutes, and universities. Then there was a point when I had 3, 4 job offers. Somehow I was in not in a very comfortable situation with my last employer. So not in the terms that it was not like functioning well, but then maybe on the growth front, because what I wanted to do and what I wanted to portray to clients, and what restrictive measures do companies take not to let grow individual think out of the box. So that was the challenge. So at that point in time, I thought that okay, fine, let me try and find out other jobs. So just like a regular person, I opted and applying for jobs, and then I got 3 of them. And one idea, like just a bit of fire, that I should try something of my own. And but then I to be very honest, I was not a very confident person that okay, fine, I'll go out there and then start off with my entrepreneurship journey and then crack everything. It was not the case. It was just like, maybe I can try, and if in case it works out, it's fine. If in case it doesn't work out, you can always go back to your job and regular career. So I did a bit of maths that okay, fine, I can survive for 6 months with all the money that I had in my bank account. So I started off with one laptop. And also my dad, I would say, was a big supporter, because he told me that if you don't do it right now, you'll not be able to do it further, because there will be additional responsibilities, there will be additional pressure. So I thought, okay, fine, let me give it a chance. And honestly, I moved ahead with the concept that I will only work as a freelancer. It was not like forming a company, forming a firm. So I went out there as a freelancer, and within, I believe, a month or so, I got my first client because of the credentials that I had. So all the degrees and certifications were in place. So when I got my first project, that gives you a lot of boost. Okay, fine. Okay, maybe you can flow. So at that point of time, I started working on a lot of freelancing projects. And suddenly there was a health issue due to which I could not work too much on laptops and mobile phones, and I was getting work. So I started hiring people. That is when I realized that there is a segregation between a company founder and the company, I would say, team, because one person will not be able to do everything. If you are doing the operations also, then you cannot actually act as a founder. So I would believe that the founder needs to have a lot of ideation in place, and execution needs to be trusted with your team members. So that is when I learned this very important lesson at a very initial stage. So when I was interacting with few of my senior people that helped me to structure my mind into entrepreneurship, they told me that this lesson needs to be learned at initial stage only. Otherwise, people spend their entire lives and probably 15, 20 years, and then they feel, okay, fine, I am the one who is running the business. And if I am not there, the business will not flow. This is not what I wanted to do. So then again, building up the team size and everything. So there was one thing that I was consistently following, and that was networking. Because when you are a young entrepreneur, when I started off, I must be around 27. So at that point of time, and nobody from the business background again, so you don't know what to do. You don't know where to reach because all your friends are at the associate level. And even if your seniors are there, they might not be to a position where they can outsource the work to you and then get it done. So, and again, the backup support, my father was in a government job, so he couldn't help much as well. So then I thought that the only way to be in the market is that I have to prove myself and then I have to do networking. So what I followed throughout my journey would be meeting at least one person in a day, or if in case at least 3 4 people in a week. So that way you create your network. And meeting doesn't mean that they will give you work. Meeting just means that you establish a relationship with them. You just be there and help each other out, because that is how the entire human ecosystem works. That you try to understand what the other person is doing. And no matter how much digital we go, that the human touch cannot be replaced. If you meet a person and then you try to explain them, you spend some time with them, if you're there in their memory because of the human touch that happened, it will stay for a longer time. So I receive a lot of messages, a lot of emails from random people pitching out their services, and if I meet somebody, I would rather give the work to somebody whom I met and have some kind of credibility and understanding. This was one principle I kept on doing that, and landed up with some big projects. Like big, first I remember, first project that I got was from a very big company who is into automobile sector, and it took me 6 level of interviews to crack that project. But then that project was just a turning point, that if I can crack this project just because of the credentials and values that I have, so I should trust myself more and then keep it going. So since then, it's been an interesting journey. I enrolled myself into a lot of training sessions because I felt that India, uh, the potential is huge, but then people are not aware what is IP. If I talk about right now, it is still highlighted to a larger extent, because then honestly, government also played a very important role with Startup India, Made in India, and everything in India. So, but then at that point of time, it was like it took me a bit of time to make them understand why it is needed, why an IP will increase their valuation, why IP will protect what they're doing, and if they don't do it, what are the challenges that they will face. So, a lot of effort went into trainings, and training started off with startups. It moved to mid-scale companies, to larger corporates, to universities. So that's why I've conducted more than I would say 100 lectures as of now. So post that, as I said, that my focus shifted more towards having a little bit of global presence. So I started working on that. So we have kind of tied up with a lot of law firms and attorneys across the globe to keep it going. So again, if I can narrow it down, I would say my journey would not be that I had this idea and then I was born entrepreneur. It's nothing like that. I learned throughout my journey that what is the possible way out. If I'm stuck somewhere, maybe I can find a solution. With my team also, I try to trust them, because unless you trust your team and let them do and learn by themselves, you will not be able to be a good, I would say, founder or a leading person. So they also, I mean, kind of their path of career or the path of learning that they had from last 5 6 years is incredible. And most of them are registered patent agents. All of them cleared in one go. So I feel that it's a kind of a proud feeling that all your kids are doing really well. So yeah, that's been the journey, and now I'm focusing more on the international market. So again, coming back to the point, what I wanted to highlight is that networking or meeting out and being there in the public domain is the key. Unless you know people, unless you reach out to people, and don't only rely on the digital platforms. It is a good strategy to follow. So digital presence should be there, but then your entire focus should be on the networking, because that is what is going to help you in business.
Amazing. You brought in a very important point about networking, reaching out to the people, and although you did not start as a born entrepreneur kind of a feeling, but you still picked up the things along the way, and you picked up them really fast. In this particular journey, where there are some incidences wherein you doubted whether it really makes sense or you need to look at something else.
Initial phases, I would say, like initial 1 to 2 years are difficult for anybody whosoever is starting off the business, because then you have so much of self doubt whether it will follow or not, and what am I doing? I have so many responsibilities. It's not generating revenues and whatnot. So, to be very honest, I feel that being an entrepreneur needs a lot of self motivation. Nobody is going to come up to you and say, okay, fine, everything will be okay. You just keep holding on to it. You need to be self motivated in it. So, if you believe in it, then keep on doing with it. But then, of course, you need to be a little realistic. If your business is such which is constantly changing, because ours was more on the service line. So, service line, with time it gets better, but if you're into product line, then product line changes on such a fast pace that if you're not catching up with that pace, then you will not be able to be there. And then again, starting off young was also one of the hurdles that I faced, that because coming from 4 5 years of background, and then people out there having 10 20 years of work experience, so they always ask you like, okay, fine, are you founder? I still remember one of the meetings where there was a person from some other country, and then he explained me everything, and then he said, you go talk to your boss and then let me know if in case it works out. So the Indian representative said that she is the boss, so he was little surprised, okay fine, such young person is boss. So yeah, that was the challenge, to make them understand that being young doesn't mean that you're not working on it, or you don't have that kind of credibility and accountability. So yes, I would say being young was a challenge. And then again, uh, I don't want to believe that, but to a certain extent it is there, that being a woman entrepreneur, it comes with their own challenges. And then there are certain situations where you are made a little uncomfortable, then you have to work around it. Sometimes it gets like, okay fine, you're a मतलब लड़की है तो क्या कितना काम कर लेगी, so they'll go and give it to. But I guess the world is changing, so I see this used to happen a lot. If I talk about 5 6 years back, now people take at least a little bit seriously, maybe because of gray hair that I'm getting now. So, yeah.
So, how important it is for all the founders, and we are seeing a huge traction towards the startups also. How important it is for them to protect their IP.
Definitely it is. If it is a technology-based startup, let me start with that. So if somebody is creating a novel product or a novel process, if you don't protect it, your entire exercise will be futile, because the amount of resources that you put in, the amount of money, time, everything that you put in will be a waste. So unless you protect it, you are not the owner of it. So anybody else coming into the market having a little bit of more bandwidth than you, because say for example, if your competitor is Amazon, if you don't protect your intellectual property, Amazon in one day will vanish you, because their entire bandwidth is so huge that the marketing and everything will occupy you, right? So you need to work on your IP, because even if when you reach out to your investors, when you reach out to any co-founders as well, it needs to be protected. Otherwise, it will be copied and then it will go. For non-technical startups, there are a lot of intellectual property issues which arises in terms of their brand names. So one struggle that I see very prominently with most of the startups is that they start off with their business without even doing a trademark search and knowing that this brand name is free to use or not. And then later on, after spending so much of money on the entire execution, they realize after an interval of time that they can't use it because it's already somebody else's ownership. At that point of time, it is a very difficult situation for them. So there are different forms of IP, like patents, trademark, copyright, design, and other legal framework that you should follow. But at least do something about it. So if it is related to a business, I would say it is very important. Otherwise, you will be lost into the market very easily.
This particular part, how early they should basically be getting into the IPR conversations with you?
As soon as you get the ideation, because say for example, if I talk about a brand name, you want to start off with some line of business. So initially, at least conduct a trademark search with the brand name itself. That will give you a fair idea whether you can use it or not, and then do the entire exercise. Even if you don't want to register it at that front, at least getting a clarity that this can be used. Like people mostly use generic names. So if you're using Delhi, if you're using India, it's a very difficult scenario for you to get a trademark application because it's a generic name. Everybody can use it. If you're describing the line of business, again, it is very generic, so you should not be doing it. So all these things needs to be taken care of and at the initial stage itself. For some things like patents and trademarks, sorry, patents and design, uh, so there you need to file your IP before you launch it into the public domain, because if you don't do it, you later cannot do that. So this concept of publication versus patent application is very, very important. If you go and publicize your product ranges and your research papers into the public domain, it is lost. You can't do anything about it. So first thing that you need to do is file a patent application. Then there are ways you can do a provisional followed by a complete and a lot of other provisions. So you can strategize, of course, but then you need to do it as soon as you reach to an ideation stage or create something out of it. Don't wait for the launch and execution stage, because then it becomes very difficult.
Now, are the Indian the startups more receptive to the idea of working that early, or people still take a lot of time and then end up losing that IP? Have you seen what is
So
that you
the
are
people
sensing now?
who are under mentorship, whosoever is having mentors, they are pretty aware of it. Whosoever is raising funds, they are pretty aware of it. But other than that, if I talk about standard businesses, like somebody opening up a restaurant, unless they have to register themselves on Zomato and Swiggy, where these certifications are needed, they will not be aware about it. So still there is, it's I would say a combination of organized and unorganized kind of a setup. So some people are getting aware because IP is very, very promoted by the government, and they want the entrepreneurs to know. So in these incubation centers and training programs, in fact, few years back there was a program which was initiated by the government that every college will have IP sessions. So I used to go and deliver those IP sessions. Why it is required? So unless you teach at that level where the students are getting um, polished, and then they are knowing what is important, what needs to be done, and those are the future entrepreneurs, right? So if they're aware, at least the awareness should be there. Post that, it is their decision whether they want to do it or not. So it's still a combination stage.
Okay. Now, coming back to your journey and from where you started, how this journey has been for you as an individual. So, how you have evolved from a BTech student to the getting into the masters, then getting into lawyer, then getting into some freelancing, now as a professional, and now as a leader of a much wider setup.
So I would say I was an entrepreneur. I'm still, sorry, I'm an introvert. So, but being an introvert, also there are certain, I would say, versions of it. So, being from a very, very shy person, I was not able to go out and talk to anybody. So, even if a person is sitting next to me, it was very difficult for me to go and talk to somebody. So, those kind of struggles. And then now, when I look at my journey, this is one personal progression that I have achieved is that now I don't feel hesitant to go out and approach people, because as I was telling you, with the networking front, it taught me that everybody is same. Like, unless you go out and talk to them, you will not know what is their journey, what is their story. Everybody is struggling, everybody is having their own success story, so you can learn a lot from people's story. I'm a very, very staunch believer of people's story. Like, I would rate it more than books, because it's a real time experience that you're having, and real learning that you can get. So that is one thing that I've achieved. I can go out and speak to larger crowd, and then I can go out and speak to anybody from any domain, because our work profile is also such that we work in diverse industries. So it's little easier now to talk in that front. So from a very shy person to delivering 100 sessions is the progress that I've achieved.
And how about collaborating with others? When normally you are on your own and you have already tested some success,
Right.
that point in time, creating a larger team sometimes becomes a kind of an obstacle, or you have this passion of continuing on your own and not having.
No, not really. So I am a very strong believer of collaboration. I feel that if you start competing, you will not go anywhere. If you start collaborating, there is a sea out there, right? So you can just probably more than your imaginations, you can achieve something. So if I can put one example, in my industry, we usually go out and file for an application. So there are two routes to it. One is you establish your own entity out there in that respective geography, and you hire people and open up offices and rest. So for that, of course, you need investor support and everything else. And then the other way is there are already established law firms or boutique law firms, independent lawyers. You can go out and collaborate with them and work together. So not only with the legal fraternity, I have worked with and collaborated with across the domains, from marketing companies to chartered accountants to company secretary, wherever there is a sink of work which can flow. And it's not only like fetching work. I believe that it should be a two-way kind of a thing. So if you are sending work, of course they will send work. So it's something where you all work together as one team, and still everybody is in a win-win situation. So I believe that currently we are in a world of collaboration. Whenever you feel you can collaborate, that is the best strategy that you can opt.
Now, this point in time, with the collaboration and the whole openness and the willingness to work with multiple entities when we are discussing, and you spoke about a very different start. So, if you need to start again after 12th, what would be your advice to Isha who has just cleared her 12th?
Be little confident that you will make through. That is one thing, because as I told you that in initial phases you get a lot of like lack of confidence whether it will flow or not. So I used to say it to my dad a lot. So he used to tell me these stories. Like, it takes a lot of, first of all, courage, and then time to build something. So you need to have some faith, and then keep on putting one brick at a time. It will lead somewhere. So that is one thing. And then don't take life too seriously on the personal front. So just manage some time for yourself, for some hobbies and some kind of fun activities. That's one thing.
Amazing. Thank you so much for these amazing insights here, Isha. And this, being the protector of your rights and protector of your value, is going to be one of the most important aspects as we look forward to this Navaratri. Thank you so much, Isha.
Thank you so much.